Good morning, students. I know students will be joining in later, but I'm going to start because this might be a long session. So we have completed lesson plan 1. Now, lesson plan 1 was like a trial lesson for you, where you needed to have a practice in preparing a lesson plan. Now, we have received those lesson plans. I marked those lesson plans and I returned it to you with comments on the side of the lesson plan, as well as at the end of your lesson plan. Now, the next task is lesson plan 2. And when you do lesson plan 2, you must be aware of the comments that I made in lesson plan 1 so that you don't repeat your errors. So what are we going to do for lesson plan 2? So I just want to share the screen with you about lesson plan 2 assignment. Okay. So for lesson plan 2, you need to design a lesson plan using the lesson plan structure template, which I will also send to you again. Right, and it depends on your phase, right? So if you are senior, so do from up to grade 11, don't do a grade 12 lesson plan. So the subject would be one of your specialization subjects. The concept can be any concept in one of your specialization subjects. Now, we have this clause here in your assignment. It says, the second lesson plan should be in another one of your specialization subjects than the one you have done in your first lesson plan. So if you want to choose a lesson plan in the second specialization subject, you may do so. However, if you choose the lesson plan in the same subject that you did for lesson 1, then you must choose another topic. You can't submit the same topic, right? That's quite obvious, right? So you can do your lesson plan in any one of your specialization subjects, but it is preferable for you to do it in the other specialization subject so that it gives you some kind of practice as well. So after you have written lesson plan 2, you have to submit lesson plan 2 to me via email. You must send it to me via email, and I will mark lesson plan 2. And for lesson plan 2, you will get a percentage mark. For lesson plan 1, you get what is called a submission mark, right? Just because you submitted, you get 10 marks. But for lesson plan 2, you get a mark out of 100%. So you have to email that lesson plan together with the draft lesson plan for lesson plan 2 to me. Also, what you will have to do with lesson plan 2, you will make a WhatsApp video of about ±3 minutes where you will be teaching the introduction of lesson plan 2, right? You will pretend that you are teaching to a class and you will make a short video of yourself to show how you would teach just the introduction part of that lesson. You will also use the same lesson to make a second video recording where you will show how you teach the development part of that lesson. So these are short lessons, and that is why we call them micro mini lessons, right? And obviously, when you submit your lesson plan, you know the drill. It must come to me in a Word format and so on. So here are the due dates. Lesson plan 1 has already been submitted, so don't worry about that. Lesson plan 2 is due on the 17th of March. That is this Thursday. Your WhatsApp video for the introduction of lesson plan 2 is due on the 21st of March. That you'll WhatsApp to me. And your WhatsApp video for the development phase is due on the 23rd of March, right? And so these are some guidelines here which you can read on your own. So what I'm now going to do is to go through the lesson plan template. And as I go through it, I'm going to be discussing the how you need to fill each part. And I will also discuss this in terms of what you did in lesson plan 1, where I found some common errors as well. So let me go to the template. Okay, so as I discussed this lesson plan template, sorry, it's the wrong one that I'm showing you. It's the lesson plan template. It's the example. Okay, I'm going to use this lesson plan. This was the example lesson plan, and I'll discuss it as I go through it. Right. So when you are doing your lesson plan, use this example lesson plan to see how to write these essential things in the lesson plan. Now, the table, if you look at the table, if you look at topic, it says forms of ownership. And under topic, we have concept and content area. So here we are, what we write here is what we are going to focus on under this topic, forms of ownership. So under forms of ownership, we are going to teach these two forms of ownership, that is sole proprietorship and partnership. So these are the two concepts. Sole proprietorship and partnership are the two concepts for this topic. Now, under that concept, the content, what are we going to teach under these headings, sole proprietorship and partnership? We are going to focus on the definition of these terms. We are going to focus on the characteristics of these terms. We're going to focus on the advantages and disadvantages and the differences between those two concepts. That is what is going to make up our lesson. Okay? So when we write our lesson plan, we must bear this in mind. This is what it is like, a brief analysis of what we are going to be teaching. The two concepts are sole proprietorship and partnership. And what we're going to teach under those two concepts is definition, characteristics, advantages and disadvantages, and differences between those two. So once you write that, it gives you a clear idea of how to go about writing the rest of the lesson plan. Now, this specific aim, now I noticed many of you wrote the specific aim on your own. Now, I said to you, the specific aim is taken directly from the CAPS document for the subject, which is called, in this case, it's called business studies. So this one here where I say acquire and apply essential business knowledge, skills and principles to productively and profitably conduct business in changing business environments, that has been taken from the CAPS document. I have not written it on my own. So when you read the CAPS document, there are many specific aims of, or in some CAPS document, they call it purpose. They call it purpose of the subject. Now, you do not copy all. Some of the students copied about 5 or 6 specific aims. You just need to take one that matches your topic, right? So this specific aim, which I took from the CAPS document, matches my topic. Now, under objectives, we write objectives under knowledge, skills, and values. And I said to you quite clearly in lesson plan 1, when you start writing your objectives, the beginning words are learners should be able to. Learners should be able to. Because you cannot say learners must know. You cannot say learners will do. Because you as a teacher, you don't know at the end of the lesson whether they will understand what you have taught or not. And therefore we use the words learners should be able to. For knowledge, the important word here is understand, because that's the purpose of teaching this topic. We want them to understand the forms of business ownership. So we say learners should be able to understand the different forms of business ownership and be able to differentiate between them with respect to their characteristics, their advantages and disadvantages. So you see this part here is related to this concept and content area. What we write there in our knowledge, when we're writing our knowledge objective, they must understand these things that we write in this concept content area. When you write the skills, now remember when you see the word skills, skills means that you must be able to do something. You have a skill, you are able to do something. So the catchword here is learners should be able to do something, right? They should be able to identify. Identify meaning they should be able, that is, they're doing something. They should be able to identify the two business entities in the local area and complete a chart by filling in the names of these entities. So here you can see they're actually going to do something. They're going to identify first, and then they're going to complete a chart. So when you write your skills objective, you must show that the learners should be able to do something. If you take another subject, if you take English, for example, if you're teaching grammar and you're teaching about tenses, then you must be able to say, learners should be able to write a sentence in the present, past, and future tense. That is all. Simple, simple writing. Please, some people use big words. Now, I am not impressed by big words, because when you write those big words, I ask myself, do you understand those big words yourself? If you cannot understand the big words, don't use them. Use simple words. If you look at my business studies example that I've given you, it's written simply. The teacher must understand what he is going to be teaching. When it comes to values, the catchword here is appreciate. Learners should appreciate the legal requirements of business ownership. Value means something that will live with the learner for the rest of their lives, right? They must appreciate. So the rest, the approach and teaching strategy and so on, there wasn't much problem. But I'm now going to go to the introduction phase, because this is important for your lesson plan too. When you introduce the topic of your lesson, you must think about an idea. How am I going to introduce this topic? What idea can I use without telling my learners that, without writing the topic of the lesson on the board or telling my learners the topic of the day, right? So this is how you have to think about it when you are writing the introduction phase of your lesson. How can I do this introduction of this topic without writing it on the board and without telling my learners? I must have an idea. So if you look in this example of a business study, example of business ownership, the idea here is firstly to show them a video recording. So what this And this video recording must be appropriate to our topic. So the video recording is about a spaza shop. And it is about somebody that owns a spaza shop. So it's related to the topic. And also, most importantly, it is something that my learners are familiar with. They know about spaza shops. So I'm not taking something foreign. I'm not taking something from another country. I'm not taking something that they do not know. So we take something that is familiar to them. I'll give you another example. Let's say you are teaching about measurements in mathematics. Your grade 7 class, you're teaching them about measurements. How are you going to introduce that lesson? And I always tell all my students, the best way to do this is to go outside the classroom. Ask them to take the rulers, ask them to take the string, a piece of string, take the chalkboard ruler if you've got one, take a tape measure. You must, as a teacher, must take a tape measure. Take them outside the classroom, take them onto the ground, ask them to measure different things, measure the length of the ground using a string, measure the car park, measure the gate, things like that. So you are introducing them to the practical way of measurement first before you do the topic in the classroom, before you tell them about millimeters and meters and centimeters and all that. So you've got to think about an idea. So when you write your introduction, study your topic carefully. Think carefully about how can I do this? How can I introduce it so that my learners are straight away, they get attracted to the topic, that I capture their attention immediately. So that is what you need to do, is to think about an idea. So when you write your introduction, firstly, think about an idea of how to introduce the topic. Secondly, think about what resources you can use to help you to introduce the topic. So yeah, in this example, I've used the video as a resource to introduce the topic. And that video, I've selected about a spaza shop because that is related to my topic. And you need to think about, when I do this introduction, if I'm using this video, I need to ask certain questions so that I know that my learners are following me. And I list the questions. I must write the questions. You write the questions in your lesson plan. And then you say, having asked those questions, how are you now going to lead to the topic, right? You only do that in the introduction. You do not go into the development part yet. You just introduce the topic. So study this example lesson plan and see how it is written. In the development part of the lesson, you would notice that we have written in steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right up to step 4. Now, where do I get these steps? So I go back to what I wrote here in my table. There are two things, sole proprietorship and partnership. And what am I doing with them? I'm defining, I'm talking about characteristics, I'm talking about advantages and disadvantages, and I'm talking about differences. So if you look at what I'm doing, my development part, step 1, I'm going to define sole proprietorship and partnership. So with the moment you do that, the next thing, we're not going to write notes here. We're not writing notes. What you as a teacher need to think about, how am I going to teach this? How am I going to get them to define sole proprietorship and partnership, right? So what is going to help me to make my learners understand and arrive at a definition of sole proprietorship and partnership? So I'm going to use pictures as my resource. So all I say here is pictures showing businesses which are owned by one person and a group of persons within the learner's environment will be displayed. The following questions will be asked to encourage discussion. So I list the questions. So you see, for this first step, I'm using a resource. I'm saying how I'm going to use a resource. I'm going to ask questions. I'm listing the questions. And I don't stop there. I said, following the discussion, the pictures which show business owned by one person will be grouped together, and those owned by more than one person will be grouped together. Before defining the types of ownership, learners will be given an opportunity to create their own definitions of the types of ownership as depicted in the two groups. So we give the learners a chance to respond. This is learner participation as well. And if they create their own definitions, they remember it better. And then to verify it, we use the textbook. We do not use the textbook from the beginning. We just use the textbook to back up to see whether we're on the right lines. So you see, when I write the development part, I'm not writing notes. I'm not giving the details of what I'm teaching, what is in the content, but I'm focusing on how I'm going to teach that concept, the definition, that content. How am I going to teach it? The next part of my content is characteristics of sole proprietorship and partnership. Here as well, you'll notice I'm not writing notes about the characteristics, right? I am getting the learners to mention the characteristics. And how do I do that? I ask questions. I get responses for them. And then I summarize those responses on the board. This is lesson planning now. It's not writing of detailed notes. It is telling me how my lesson is going to be progressing. In step 3, advantages and disadvantages. Here as well, I look at 2 videos, and I'm using the video as my resource here. And then we use those videos and we stop those videos at certain points to reconcile, to reinforce certain things. Step 4, the differences between the 2 types. Here as well, we look at what can help us to teach this. We're looking at the resources that we can use, and we're looking at how are the learners going to now learn about this. So we use group work here, right? So, but the group work I have mentioned in details. Many of you did group work, but you didn't tell us how the groups are going to work. What is their outcome that you expect from that group work? So you'll see the details that I put in here, right? Finally, the consolidation part of the lesson is important as well. Here you don't say, I will ask the learners if they don't know anything, they must ask questions. That is a very weak form of concluding the lesson. Here, again, you need to think about ideas of how you as the teacher is going to make out whether the learners understood your lesson or not. Here, I'm asking the groups to present their group work. That will give me an idea if the class knows what I taught them. You can ask it, you can create a quiz, like a game in the classroom. You can use an interactive chart as well to conclude your lesson, okay? So follow the example lesson plan when you are doing your lesson plan. Now, one of the things that you have in your template is the reflection part. Now, the reflection part of your lesson, you need to reflect on the successes and the challenges that you had whilst you are planning your lesson. Remember, you have not taught this lesson. So you cannot write the reflection as if you have taught it. Right? That's just fraudulent now. All you need to do there is to write about what challenges and successes you had whilst you were planning this lesson. It is for planning of the lesson, okay? So what I've done using this lesson plan is to go through the errors that many people made and to correct them. And I hope now you know how to go about doing your lesson plan too. Right, as for the presentation, right, there is a page here on the presentation skills. So you will have to read this about how to present. Obviously, you have done 2 presentations already. You know that there must be professionalism, you must be articulate, you must project your voice, you must show confidence. And the confidence comes from you knowing your subject matter. So when you do the lesson plan, you have to learn it as if you're studying for an examination. You have to learn that material for that lesson plan. Although you may think, oh, you're a postgraduate student and this is high school stuff or whatever, but you have to know your subject matter thoroughly, and that gives you the confidence. When you know your subject matter thoroughly, you can be brave enough to stand in front of the classroom and present. Now, I always tell my students, how are you going to make out whether you are presenting well? I always tell my students, go and stand in front of the mirror. Go and stand in front of the mirror and present to yourself. Pretend that you're presenting to the class, but you are able to see yourself presenting. If you recall, you know, when people do go to dancing school, when they go to dancing school, you'll find in the dancing school, in one wall of the dancing school, they have a huge mirror, right? And that is for people to see themselves, to see if they are doing the right moves and things like that. So similarly here, when you are presenting, it is good for you to stand in front of the mirror and present to yourself so you can pick up your errors and you can reflect on your presentation and improve on it. So this presentation sheet over here, I will send to you and you can read it for yourself. Now, the other thing that I would like to share with you, I'm not sure whether I can pick it up on share screen. Okay. Okay, right. So this is a recording. Actually, it's a recording of myself presenting that business studies lesson, right? This was a recording that was done in the university where I presented the business studies lesson. So you can view this recording. I'm not sure whether it plays here. Present the lesson that you have taught.
Sorry, say.
Is it me or the video has a audio problem?
We can't hear anything.
It's actually you, I think, because the sound is on.
But we can't hear anything from it.
Okay, so I'm sorry if the sound didn't come through, but I could hear the sound. So what I will do, I will send you that video and then you can listen to that recording. But what I want to tell you, with that presentation, when you look at that presentation, that video presentation that I'm doing of the business studies lesson, you will make out, as you read the lesson plan, you will make out the introduction, the development, and the conclusion phases of that lesson. So what I would advise you to do, when you listen to that video recording presentation that I'm doing, keep that business study example lesson that I've given you, keep it one side and follow it and see how I'm doing that lesson. So it gives you an idea of how to do your own presentation. Okay. So I will send you the recording, and I'm sure it is on YouTube as well, so you will be able to hear it. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there and check if there are any questions from you before we stop. You can unmute yourself and ask questions if you want to. Are you all fine?
No questions.
No questions, which means you're all on top of things then.
I do have a question, sir.
Yes, Nomzamo.
Yes, my question is based on the development and the conclusion. So what happens when my learners to do the group work, to do the presentation of their group work on step 3 or 4? And then I heard you saying that on
Sorry, I can't hear you, Nomzamo. Hello. Nomzamo, you went off a bit.
Oh, I think it's my network. So I'm saying that what happens in a case where I ask my learners to do a presentation during the development of my lesson 10, maybe on step 3 or step 4. And then what happens when I'm now on conclusion, because I heard you saying that on conclusion, you can ask your learners to do a presentation of what they have learned.
Yeah, it depends. You can do it in your development or you can do it in your conclusion. But if you have done it in your development, so in your conclusion part, you must think about something else, like a worksheet.
Oh.
You can give them a worksheet, because what is important is you want to assess to see whether everybody has understood. Okay.
Okay. So sorry to disturb. So you're saying it's okay to assess them twice?
Yes.
So I can
yes.
assess them with a group work in the development and assess them.
Yes.
I would like to know if you're tackling, like, maybe that chapter will be considered to tackle maybe two topics, because one topic is just a small part that won't be able to take the whole lesson. That won't be able to take the whole lesson, and you have to combine it with another. Like, it will be 2 topics in one day. How can you go?
Give me an example.
Yeah, for my case, I had to do utility and then combine it with the markets, where you have to compare the perfect market and imperfect markets, but also include a topic of utility.
Okay, what you must be careful of, you must always understand your lesson is only 1 hour. Okay, so you cannot take too many things in that lesson. So if you're talking about perfect and imperfect market, that is the only thing you can do in that one lesson. Okay, because if you take anything more, then you won't have time. So one of the important things about lesson planning is your time management as well. Okay, so therefore, if you're going to talk about the factors of the market, that will be another lesson altogether.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Like if you take in English, I see some of you have done English as your subject. If you're going to take the parts of speech, you cannot take all the parts of speech in one lesson. You just need to focus on a few. If you're taking the parts of speech, like if you're taking nouns and pronouns, that will only be in one lesson. If you're taking adjectives, that will be another lesson altogether. You can't do nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs all in one lesson. You can't do that, right?
Okay.
Therefore, you need to think about the time that you have for your lesson. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So, so you know you.
Sorry,
Yes.
I have a question, sir. I just actually want to find out if is it okay to use different textbooks with the CAPS document?
Yes, you can, Nikita. You're most welcome to.
Oh, okay.
The more,
All
yeah,
right.
that's part of your research, but put it down in your reference, okay?
Oh, okay. All right. So no problem. Thanks.
But always understand that, have this in mind. The lesson plan is not somewhere where you write copious notes about your subject or your topic. The lesson plan is about how you're going to teach that content, how you're going to teach that material so that your learners understand. And let me tell you one thing. One of the worst ways of teaching is to go into the classroom and ask the learners, open your textbook and start reading from here to there. That is the worst form of teaching, and I know it's happening in our schools. You don't fall into that trap, please. Don't ever go into the classroom and ask the children to read from the textbook. Then you're not doing your job as a teacher. Your job as a teacher is to translate that material in the textbook and make it easy for them to understand. That's important. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for attending. So your lesson plan 2 must be emailed to me on the 17th of March together with the spider diagram. I'll send you the template and all that now, right? And then your presentations are due on the 21st and the 23rd of March. Thank you for attending. Bye.